Now at 5, we turn to a Fox 59 update. An accused killer behind bars. Tonight, a woman is found dead outside a home that's on Indianapolis' west side. Police say murder charges would not have been filed without the help from witnesses.
She wasn't found miles away. She wasn't found in some dark alley somewhere. She was found in her own backyard, the place that's supposed to be safe. 51 years old. A woman her neighbors called a friend, and her sister called the architecture of her life. And on what started as an ordinary Tuesday night, somebody ended her story, right there in her own yard, on the west side of Indianapolis. The police found her just after 11 o'clock at night, laying in the back of her home on South Lyndhurst Drive. No pulse, no chance, just injuries that told a story nobody wanted to hear. And the man they would eventually arrest for this? He already had a warrant out for his name, before she ever died. Today, we are talking about Kimberly Stewart, who she was, what happened to her, and how a community that loved her made sure the man responsible did not get far. In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. Kimberly wasn't the kind of woman you easily forgot. Her sister Kayla Volpino described her the way you only describe someone you have loved your whole life, not with big rehearsed words, but with the kind of quiet truth that hits harder than anything polished ever could. She said Kimberly was the person who already knew your stories before you finished telling them. The person who remembered who you were when you were young, who you were when you were strong, and who you were when you completely fell apart. She held all of those versions of the people she loved, and she held them without judgment. That is rare. Her neighbors on South Lyndhurst Drive felt it too. To them, she was not just a woman who lived a few doors down. She was someone they checked on, someone whose presence on that block actually meant something, a helpful neighbor, a loving sister, a woman whose kindness, according to the people who knew her best, seemed to flow from her without any effort at all. Kayla described it this way: that Kim practiced love not in the grand ways people talk about it, but in the small daily ways that actually matter, in how she showed up, in how she listened, in the way she could make someone feel lighter just by sharing a moment with them. That is the kind of person the world needed more of, and she was gone. On the other side of this story, there was Travis Wolfe, 45 years old, and at the very moment Kimberly was killed, already a man the law was supposed to have off the streets. Court records confirmed that Wolfe had an active arrest warrant sitting on his name since the previous October. The charge attached to that warrant: unlawful weapons possession by a serious violent felon. This man is walking around, warrant in hand, a history that already told you exactly what kind of danger he carried. And Kimberly Stewart ends up dead in her backyard. We are going to get into exactly how that night unfolded. Here is what you need to understand about Travis Wolfe before we even get to that Tuesday night. This was not a man with a clean record who made one bad decision. The warrant sitting on his name since October was not for something minor: unlawful possession of a weapon, as a serious violent felon. That means the law had already looked at Travis Wolfe before, decided he was dangerous enough to be prohibited from carrying, and he went ahead and did it anyway. And then, nobody picked him up. That warrant was active. That means every single day between that October and the night Kimberly died, Travis Wolfe was out here, free, while the paperwork that should have had him behind bars sat untouched. We do not know every word exchanged that night. We do not know exactly what led to that backyard. What we do know is that something happened between Travis Wolfe and Kimberly Stewart on that Tuesday night that ended with her lying in the grass of her own home, her body carrying injuries that were anything but accidental. Her neighbors heard something. They saw something. And unlike far too many situations where people pull their curtains and look the other way, these people decided to talk. That decision would change everything that came next. It was a Tuesday night. Ordinary in every way it should have been. The kind of night where people are winding down, lights going off one by one down the block, everybody heading towards some kind of rest. Kimberly Stewart was home, on South Lyndhurst Drive, her block, her space, the place she was supposed to be safest. Just after 11 o'clock, police received a call, an unresponsive woman. When officers arrived at the 1300 block of South Lyndhurst Drive, they went to the backyard, and they found her there. Kimberly Stewart, 51 years old, laying in her own backyard with injuries that were consistent with trauma. She was pronounced dead right there at the scene. She never even made it inside. Her own yard, her own home. And she never got to walk back through that door. The details of exactly what happened in that backyard, what was said, what was used, how it unfolded minute by minute. Those details have not been fully released publicly. What investigators found when they got there told them enough. The injuries on Kimberly's body were not accidental. This was not a fall. This was not a medical episode. Somebody did this to her, and that somebody had not gone far. The moment investigators got on the ground, they started talking to people, neighbors, folks on the block, people who had seen or heard something that Tuesday night and were willing to say so. And here is what set this case apart from so many others. They talked. In a lot of these situations, people see things and they stay quiet. Whether it is fear, whether it is distrust of the police, whether it is just not wanting to get involved, silence is common. But the people who knew Kimberly Stewart, the people who lived near her, the people who called her a friend, they were not willing to let her death go unanswered. The Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department was direct about it. They said this out loud. The arrest in this case would not have happened without the community coming forward. Those were not just polite words. That was the reality of how this investigation moved. Detectives worked through the night. Witness by witness, detail by detail, they pieced together enough to put a name to what happened in that backyard. That name was Travis Wolfe, 45 years old. And as investigators pulled his information, something stood out immediately. That active warrant. The one that had been sitting there since October. Unlawful weapons, possession by a serious violent felon, a man who should have been behind bars long before Kimberly ever ended up in that yard. So now detectives are not just looking for a murder suspect. They are looking for a man the system already had paperwork on, a man who had already been flagged as dangerous, a man who was still walking free when he should not have been. That is a lot to sit with. By Wednesday morning, less than 12 hours after Kimberly's body was found, detectives had enough. They knew who they were looking for, and they knew the general area where he was. The search led them to a neighborhood near 19th and Drexel, not far from where Kimberly had lived. Just before 11 o'clock Wednesday morning, Travis Wolfe was taken into custody. Less than 12 hours. Because the people on that block refused to be silent about what happened to their neighbor. IMPD said it plainly. This is what public safety is supposed to look like. Not police working alone, not a community left in the dark. A collaboration. People and investigators working toward the same thing. Accountability for a woman who deserved so much better than what was done to her.
The key to solving the homicide here at this home behind me was two words: community cooperation, Police say that assistance allowed detectives to track down the accused killer less than 12 hours after the victim was found dead. Kimberly Stewart is remembered as a helpful neighbor and loving sister. Sadly, just after 11 o'clock Tuesday night, police found the 51-year-old woman dead in her own backyard behind this home on South Lyndhurst.
It's just sad. It's just very sad that somebody got murdered.
That neighbor lives just a few doors down from the victim and considered Kimberly a friend.
It's too close to home to have this done. It's sad. It's very sad.
While the motive for the murder remains unclear, after speaking to cooperative witnesses and neighbors, police quickly identified 45-year-old Travis Wolfe as the suspected killer.
This is really what public safety should look like. This should be a collaboration between the community and IMPD working together.
Violent crimes detectives took Wolfe into custody just before 11 o'clock Wednesday morning in this neighborhood near 19th and Drexel. IMPD admits the arrest was only possible because of the public's help.
That community coming forward is what led to the arrest of this murder suspect.
Court records show at the time of the killing, Wolfe did have an active arrest warrant dating back to last October after he was charged with unlawful weapons possession by a serious violent felon last year. IMPD hopes the quick arrest of Stewart's accused killer gives some peace of mind to her grieving family.
This highlights all that work to bring justice for this victim who's no longer with us.
If he did it, hold him accountable, because this is not right as taking somebody's life.
The suspect is now being held without bond at the Marion County Jail, pending the filing of formal charges by the prosecutor's office.
There is a specific kind of grief that comes when someone is taken suddenly. Not the kind that builds slowly, that gives you time to prepare, that lets you say the things you needed to say. The kind that just arrives, without warning, without permission, and rearranges everything you thought was permanent. That is the grief that Kimberly Stewart's family stepped into the morning after that Tuesday night. And her sister Kelly Volpino found words for it that most people never could. She talked about what it means to grow up alongside someone. How when you share a whole lifetime with a person, you stop noticing how extraordinary they are, because they are simply part of the structure of your days. The person who already knows the ending of your story before you get there. The person who holds every version of you, the young version, the strong version, and the version that completely falls apart. When you lose that person, you are not just losing them. You are losing the only witness to all of those versions of yourself. And that is a loss that does not have a simple name. Keela described the silence that followed, walking into the room Kimberly used to sleep in during her visits, reaching for the phone out of habit before remembering she would not pick up. The absence showing up not in one big moment, but in all the small ones in between. The moments where you just expect someone to still be there. She said their family was living inside a grief too new to fully understand. And what mattered most to them, what they wanted the world to carry, was not the darkness of how Kimberly died. It was the light she brought into every room she walked into every life she touched. If there is one thing we hope people carry forward, it is not the darkness of this moment, but the light she brought into the lives of others. That is the part of her that remains. Rest, Kimberly. The people who knew you are keeping your flame, and the people who never got to meet you, we see you now.